China gathering information on over 200 million Americans and how he believes that affected that election. Because according to my friend Trump, who I saw Saturday, he was so cute and so nice. He's 3-0. Here is the best when it comes to any of these China conversations. Gordon Chang, Gordon G. Chang on Twitter. Gordon, good Monday morning, buddy. How are you?
I'm fine, Sid, and thank you so much.
No, it's great to have you. So you saw Trump on Thursday night. He intimated that China cheated. Let's start with this. He said that he has learned now, and the CIA knew this and others, but kept it a secret, that China was able to amass about 220 million Americans' identities and personal information. Do you believe that is actually true?
Yes, I do. We know that China's attempt to hoover up information in this country is the most comprehensive in history. And it's not just voter data. We see them, for instance, in the Office of Public Management of the federal government, where they got a lot of compromising material. They've also gone after the insurance company files. That's really important because they find out which Americans are sick, and that means which Americans are vulnerable. They take all of this data from all these sources, they collate it, they analyze it, and they figure out what they can do to Americans, blackmail them, coerce them, get them to turn against our country. So, yeah, this is extremely serious. And that's in addition to what they can do with our election infrastructure.
What is curious to me, though, is, and I believe Trump, too, and I believe you, is what I think the president didn't do on Thursday was prove to the American audience that even though the Chinese have gotten this information, I believe that's true, how, in fact, that affected one vote. In other words, he didn't say, well, they got this information and they were able to convince or they were able to fix the machine to make sure that Republican votes went the Democrat way. I don't know if you follow what I'm saying, but he told us all this information but didn't really tell us how it directly affected the election. Does that make sense?
That's correct. He did not say that it changed the outcome of the election. But what President Trump didn't mention is what the Chinese did to change the election. So, for instance, we know that they funneled money to the Democratic Party through Act Blue from foreign sources, which is illegal. We know that they used their social media bots to disrupt the president's campaign. The New York Times reported that in March of 2020, the Chinese used text messages to spread false rumors about President Trump about to invoke the Stafford Act to basically take over the country. President Trump didn't say that the Chinese were fomenting violence on American streets, both openly and surreptitiously. When an American foments violence to overthrow the government, that's a federal crime. But when China foments violence on American streets, that's an act of war. And by the way, Sid, China did something which changed the election result for sure, and that was it spread COVID beyond its borders. At the beginning of 2020, everybody was saying that President Trump was cruising to re-election. But what COVID did was it disrupted American society, True. And I believe that it affected the outcome. It changed the outcome of the election.
So do you think that the Chinese did this in the Wuhan lab, we know that, and Anthony Fauci should be in prison, we all know that. So do you think that they did this to make sure that Trump didn't win? Was it more about killing Americans? Was it both? What do you think it was?
Well, I know that they spread COVID beyond their borders deliberately. I don't think that they did it to change the election result, but it did change the election result, and it did weaken America. And their purpose was to weaken America. And we know that they spread COVID beyond their borders because they did two things. They lied about transmissibility in December 2019 and January 2020 at a critical moment when the disease was spreading. And while they were locking down their own country, they were pressuring us to keep our borders open to Chinese arrivals without restrictions. You put those two things together, and the conclusion is inescapable, that they took decisions to deliberately spread this disease beyond their borders. That's not to say that COVID, for instance, got out into the Chinese public. We don't know how that happened. But we do know what happened once it was in central China, and they did spread it beyond their borders. 1.2 million Americans died from COVID. That's 1.2 million murders of Americans.
Murders, you're right. And you are pretty convinced, based upon the data they've been collecting since, and some of the, I guess, a strain that would affect everybody but their own people, which is amazing. You're pretty convinced that they're at it again, right? Coming up with something, another type of disease or outbreak that can once again affect the world, yes?
Yes, because we know the Chinese technicians and scientists publicly talk about what they call specific ethnic genetic attacks. In other words, attacks that are directed against one specific ethnic group. It's something that can be done. It's just biology has advanced to the point where they can develop a disease that hits just one person. So yes, they can target a specific group. I believe that not only do they talk about it, but they actually are working on it, and that means we've got to be extremely concerned. Remember, we found those two Chinese biological weapons facilities on American soil. The first one in Reedley, California, the second one in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it's very clear from what we know in the public that there's at least a third biological weapons facility that has yet to be discovered.
Gordon Chang, follow Gordon on Twitter, Gordon G. Chang. Some people say to me, you know, your friend the president, he was in China, what, about 2 months ago, and he's sitting there and they're having dinner and they're laughing, him and G, and they're getting along just great, and, you know, they're both saying nice things about each other, each other's countries. They were like, if Trump knew about this, what he told the nation last Thursday, when he was in China, like 2 months ago, why didn't he go to G when he was there and say, hey, tough guy, just so you know, we know what you did? Why didn't he do that?
He very well may have done it. There are a lot of conversations that took place in May in Beijing that we just don't know about. And I'm sure that President Trump raised not only the issue of election interference, but others as well. Now we've got Xi Jinping scheduled to come to our country sometime in September. I hope that does not occur. I don't think that we should be hosting the Chinese leader in these circumstances, but we'll see if that summit takes place.
Well, China's come out and said what Trump said last week is not true. And according to the Chinese today or yesterday, Xi is still going to come. But yeah, if you're President Trump and you just made this really good argument that they affected the elections, that they are stealing American information. You're talking about COVID, which ruined his opportunity in 2020, maybe. All these things that are going on above and beyond the fact they're helping Iran, then I think it would make a lot of sense for President Trump to say, and I quote, stay home. Do me a favor, stay home.
Yeah, do not come.
That's it.
Not
Don't come. Because, again, all I keep hearing is that the American munitions are kind of low, lower than what Pete Hegseth wants you to believe. But yet Iran, they're fine. Why? Because both China and Russia are still somehow, maybe the Caspian Sea, I'm not smart enough, but still somehow getting Iranians weapons, which we see they're bombing some other place almost every day. So it seems like the Chinese and Russia are still knee-deep with Iran in this war.
Well, they certainly are. Two things about China. We know that those CM-302 supersonic cruise missiles that the Iranians fired at the Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group in March, those were Chinese. We also know that China has been providing targeting data to the Iranians, and it's like 99.99999% that the Iranians used Chinese targeting data to kill 6 Americans on March 1st in Kuwait. So, yes, that's to me, that's a lights out thing. The other thing is that we know the Iranians in the last couple of days have been firing very high-speed, maneuverable warheads. The Iranians did not develop those. They either got them from the Russians or the Chinese or both. We need to have the President of the United States tell us what he knows, because clearly the Iranians are using some foreign technology, probably Chinese, probably Russian, who knows, but using foreign technology to kill Americans.
So what would you like to see President Trump do? And what's realistic? Let's have an honest conversation. What would you like to see President Trump do? He just addressed the nation on China last week, and maybe that was a missed opportunity to talk more about this Iran war. I don't know. What do you want to see Trump do?
I want to see him talk to the American people about the dangers that China is posing. We have all these Chinese cells in our country. They are operating, some of them are operating openly. I want to see President Trump talk to us about the threat that China poses and the imminence. Xi Jinping talks about war all the time, and he's obviously thinking about the United States because they're configuring their military to hit ours. So we need to have that discussion. The Iranians are starting to operate their cells in our country. It's not very long before the Chinese and the Russians could operate theirs as well. So we're at a point where our country is in mortal risk.
And there's already so many examples of small towns in our country hidden away in nice states like Massachusetts and other states where the Chinese have already broken into their water grids, their electrical grids. We've seen examples of this already. So for the Chinese to shut us down, our lights, our power, contaminate the water, those types of things, that is entirely realistic, yes?
Yes. Well, the Iranians shut down the water system of Aliquippa, Pennsylvania.
That's right.
And also we know that the Chinese have gone after major infrastructure, hospitals in Texas, water systems, electric grids, all the rest of it. So, yes, we need to start erecting really effective defenses. And by the way, there's something that the American people don't talk about, and that is, in the first decade of the century, America's national security professionals were worried about the North Koreans smuggling in the parts of a nuclear weapon into the United States, reassembling it in the city of their choice, and then privately threatening the president. Well, if the North Koreans could have done that, then the Chinese and Russians, who are far more capable than the North Koreans, can certainly do it. So we've got to understand what's at risk here.
So on the way out, Trump has already resolved 8 conflicts. You know, he's having difficulty, obviously. He thought it was going to be the easiest one, but no one can control Putin. So Ukraine, Russia is still raging. Now you got us with Iran, which is raging and about to get worse. Thank God Israel is safer these days, and obviously the peace agreement with Lebanon is a big deal. And I know Trump is a great, great president, and really in his heart of hearts wants there to be peace all over the world. That's why he's been hesitant to just blow the doors off Iran, even though I said months ago, when I was worried I upset him, but I didn't, that's what he should have done. He should still do it. I mean, don't hold back. Just, civilians die in war. I'm so sick of it already, okay? I know my kid is not serving. Come at me as hard as you want. There's no draft. These kids volunteer. They know what's at stake. They're real heroes. They're courageous, okay? They're out there to serve. And how do we end World War II? German civilians died, Japanese civilians died, and we won. And we can't keep pussyfooting around here, Gordon. We got to just level these bastards because they're still killing Americans. Now 18 dead. I know Trump knows that, and I know he wants to do his best not to get people hurt. But at this point, is it fair to say the world is a dangerous place, or it's gotten better, or both?
Well, certainly, yeah, it's gotten more dangerous. Trump is right. He's given off-ramps to both Putin and Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un, and they've rejected his gestures. And now, after the rejection, it's up to the president to actually face the consequences of their failure to try to come to terms with us. And that means, in the case of Iran, as you say, blowing the doors off. We also need to we've reimposed the blockade. That's a good thing. We're starting to hit the railroad bridges and the land links. That's good. But we need to declare a no-fly zone. We need to completely starve the Iranian regime. And the other thing is we need to go after those countries that are supporting Iran. And that, by the way, is Russia, and it's also China. We've got to basically win this quickly. And the President of the United States has the power to do it. And I hope he's lost the patience.
I think he has. And look, the fact is he could have sat here and done nothing like Biden did, like Obama did, paid those people and acted like everything was great while these countries, these enemies were gaining power, and we saw what Iran was able to do and help out all those terror proxies and on that awful day in Israel. So thank God for President Trump. Thank God he did something about it. He's not going to allow the world to just go completely south like Biden and Obama did. But now we're at the point where it's got to get a little heavy, is what I'm about to say.
Yes.
Right? Gordon, as always, you're amazing. Love having you on this program. Can't have you on enough. Gordon Chang, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Sid, so much.
God bless you, pal. Gordon Chang right there. Follow Gordon on Twitter at Gordon G. Chang.
Thanks for listening to Sid and Friends in the Morning. You can hear Sid and Friends in the Morning weekday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?